Hello and welcome to another video, and it's this is one of those time slip videos. So the last one we done went down really well, and this one is a little bit different, and I probably feel like we should be sitting around a campfire for this one. And yeah, nice cozy sort of evening where you can chill out, listen to a few stories. And this one is a bit, I'm not gonna say I struggle with this one, but it's got two different endings to it, and I'm going to tell you both, and then there's a third part that is based in the same area and probably the same street, but I'm going to let you see what you think of it. And but again, thank you for support. I'm guessing my people didn't like Canterbury so it's my worst performing video for a long time, so I don't know why that didn't really hit the mark. I don't know why people don't like Canterbury. There you go. I changed the thumbnail on that to see if that helped it, but no, it's still sticking at about 920 views instead of like the 1,000, 2,000 views the videos are getting at the moment. But that's what it is, isn't it? I ain't gonna say it is what it is. I hate it. It is what it is. That drives me insane. But you see, my monk's missing. Just got back from South End. I posted this monk off twice to this gentleman that wanted one. Never got them. Royal Mail just failed to deliver them. So in the end, I drove up there tonight and dropped it off to him. So really appreciate it. Really nice guy. And South End's having Ant Day, the day of the flying ants. Come back and my car was absolutely covered in flying ants. So yeah, that was an interesting little trip home. So let's get into this video. It starts off in 1990, maybe 89. We're with two 20-year-olds that are driving to Epping Forest Country Club. Now don't start, you know this is going to be a time slip and or alternate reality video, right? Those who know Epping Forest Country Club, but they didn't get in, right? So they didn't get into Epping Forest Country Club, and it was a weekend and the weather was absolutely gorgeous. It's been a baking hot day. They're a little bit annoyed at not getting into the club, and they take a slow drive back through Epping Forest. They come out through Loughton and they come out through Debden. I'm sure I'm saying that's right, Debden. And they're just driving, and it's getting dark, but it's an absolutely beautifully clear night. As they're driving down the road, it starts coming very, very overcast, and they drive into some rain, and that rain gets heavier and heavier. Now they believe they went down a road called Pudding Lane. Now I've looked at Pudding Lane, and yeah, it's very much possible that it is Pudding Lane that they went into, looking at the roads around the area. I do question something that comes on, because I think it's called Chigwell Row they ended up in, that they live in or had to drive through. We'll get more into that later on. So they've just turned into Pudding Lane. They say that the rain gets really, really heavy. The thunder starts and the lightning starts, and they get a little bit, slowing down, get a little bit nervous driving through the area. They're 21, not been driving that long. Their names are Stuart and Kelly, and they've been together a couple of years, and it's not the perfect relationship. Been going to a lot of clubbing, and they really like that sort of stuff. And the reason why I didn't get into Epping Forest Country Club is because there was over 21s that they were going to. And it's probably the first time Epping Forest Country Club were and all stuck to the over 25s policy. But again, it had a reputation, and they thought they were going to be able to go there, get in, and they didn't. Now there are other clubs they could have gone to, but they decided they didn't want to do that. They were going to drive home, get a takeaway, and just chill out for the evening. But as they're driving down Pudding Lane, the rain is getting so heavy that the roads are becoming flooded. Now Stuart has only got an Escort, a Mark III Escort. As the thunderstorm gets worse and worse, the roads are really flooding. He hits a puddle, and the water floods the car. Literally the engine. So the engine cuts out, and they're sitting in the car and they don't really know what to do. But where they're actually sitting is a little bit of a dip of road, and the water is getting higher and higher. Kelly gets a little bit nervous and says that she don't want to stay in the car and she wants to get out. By this time, the thunder and lightning is absolutely horrendous. And Stuart says, it's literally a flash and clash of thunder and lightning like every few seconds. And the rain was so heavy it was hurting them. And on top of that, every now and again they were getting these massive hailstones. So it's that sort of thing that you don't want to be out in the open with. As soon as they get out of the car, they realise they've made a big mistake. It is so dark, there are no lights on anywhere. The whole street is absolutely pitch black. They can't see because of the rain, they've got water in their eyes. No, the hailstones are coming down. No, they can't hear each other because the weather's so bad. And they are thinking that they've really messed up and they should have stayed in the car. They've staggered across to the side of the road and they're looking down the road as best they could, and they couldn't see anything. And they are cuddled up to each other, trying to make their way down the road, trying to find a house or some shelter. They are absolutely drenched by this time. They're not arguing, but they're not being that kind to each other, and they're blaming each other for the situation, going back to saying, well, I told you we couldn't get in, and they're going, well, I didn't want to go there anyway, and that sort of stuff was going on. So the atmosphere between them was a little bit heated. After a few minutes, they're walking on this mud bank. Well, it wasn't a mud bank, it was a grass bank, but it's quickly turning into mud. And Kelly slips and she goes down and she hurts her legs and she's absolutely covered in mud. Stuart picks her up and again tries to help her down the road to try and find somewhere. Eventually, they come across these really big iron gates on the side of the road. And looking through it, they see this house. Now, they describe the house not as a big brick mansion, but it's set back a little bit from the road. It's like a bit like wooden frame type of building with some brickwork in it. And they're trying the gates, and these big iron gates actually open. And they're walking up to this house. Now, this is where Kelly's humour still kicks in. She turns around and says, and if you know this, you'll get it, that if a man opens up wearing a basque and stockings, or if Richard O'Brien opens the door, she's running back out. Now, that's a reference to Rocky Horror Picture Show. So already they're getting creepy vibes of this house. And they go up to it, and first of all, they're not going to knock on the door. They are literally under the eaves of the house taking shelter. They're thinking like we normally think that a British thunderstorm doesn't last that long, and if you get out of the way for a little bit, after 20 minutes or whatever, it goes. They actually sat there for over an hour under the eaves of this house. It just continued. The thunder and lightning was getting worse, the rain was getting even heavier, and they decided they're going to try and knock on this door. Now, there was no lights on it in the building at all. They knock on the door, and after a couple of minutes, the door opens, and standing there is this little old lady. And they explain to her that their car's broken down, and can they take shelter in the house till the storm passes. The lady is more than happy to let them come into the house. She sits them down into this long dining room at the front of the building. And she's pottering off, and she's going around getting candles, lighting candles, and putting them around so some light is starting to come into the house. They're sitting there, they're looking around at what they can see, and they describe the house as all wooden panelled with lots of paintings around the room. Now, the lady, as they're sitting there drying out, she's brought some old blankets down. They're putting these blankets onto them, and they describe the blankets as very sort of like smoky smelling, as if they've been dried over an open fire. This little old lady is just putting around the house behind them, putting up more and more candles all the way through the house. So bit by bit they're seeing more of where they actually are. They start describing the house more in detail. So not just only about these wooden panels and these paintings, but they're saying that they've got lots of brass ornaments all the way around the walls. And he gets up and he's looking around and he's saying they look like sort of like trophies or massive great big candlesticks. The little lady comes back through and he asks her about these trophies. And she turned around and said that they were her late husband's and he got them for fox hunting. Now, that's probably not unusual around that sort of area. Lots of farmsteads and Epping forest, and hunting was quite a big thing. And I guess today it still goes on over that area. What was a little bit peculiar was what she said next, is that she often gets visitors from the road. And he goes, what, do a lot of people break down here? And she goes, oh yeah, all the time. This comes back into play later on. About another hour has passed and the weather has not improved. And in fact, they turn around and say that now there's the high winds were kicking in as well. And all the doors and windows were being battered by this wind. Now it was getting more and more creepy. The lady turned around and said, "You're more than welcome to lay down on the sofa and get some rest. And, even if you have to stay here by the morning, it's absolutely fine." And I think that's very, very kind of her. She doesn't offer them any food or drink. So it wasn't as if she's going to start catering for them. These are two people who have just come in from the road, and she thinks obviously they're quite honest people because the weather is horrendous and she's doing a kind deed. And after a little while of hesitating, they're thinking, we can't go back to the car. The engine is flooded. It's not going to start now. It's stuck in the middle of a massive puddle. So there's no point going back till the weather's improved and the water's gone down. And then he's thinking that in the morning he can walk up to town, or maybe she can phone up somebody and they can come and get the car rescued. They decide to take her up on her offer of bedding down on the settee. This is the last point where the stories that are told line up. From here on, they split up into separate routes, but sort of come back again at the end. And I'm going to stick with the standard, most reported story. Now, this one comes from Stuart's side of the story. Stuart's side of the story is that they go to sleep on this sofa. The weather is keeping him up all night and he's tossing and turning. He can't sleep. The thunderstorm is really, really loud. And then he wakes up with the sun beating down on him. He's thinking it's the sun coming through the window. But when he opens up his eyes, he is on somebody's modern driveway. And he looks round and Kelly is laying next to him. And they look over and the car is literally just a few feet away in a completely non-wet state. The roads are absolutely bone dry and there's no puddles around. She's not covered in mud, and they're looking at each other and they're completely bemused by what has happened. They can't work it out. They walk over to the car, they get in the car and the car starts. And they're just sitting there looking at each other going, did we dream that? What was that? I know some people thinking that they've been to Epping Forest Country Club and they know what goes on there, but it was nothing like that. And so this is Stuart's side of the story, which is a little bit less dramatic than Kelly's side of the story. What Kelly says, and I don't know why they disagree on this. Some people say it's because Stuart was more traumatised than what he said and he tried to play it off as no big deal. Kelly's description is a little bit different. So after trying to lay down on the settee to try and sleep, she couldn't sleep. The lady offers them a room and she takes them upstairs. Again, no lights apart from candles that the lady is carrying around with. Takes them into a room, really old-fashioned room, and they lay down on the bed. After what she thinks is about another hour, she starts smelling thick smoke. She wakes Stuart up, agrees that he smells smoke in that house as well. She opens up the door and the whole hallway is completely thick smoke, and at the far end she can see flames coming up the wall. She grabs Stuart and they both run out of the house and they're trying to get to the front door. They're choking, they can't breathe, and they literally fall through the front door and then pass out. Kelly says that she wakes up choking and thinking the heat that was hitting her face was the fire, and when she opened up her eyes it was actually the sun beating down on her, and again they were laying on this modern driveway. When they looked round, the gates weren't these thick iron gates, they were just thin metal gates. And when they look through the gates, they see a modern house there, completely different to the house that they'd been in the night before. Kelly agrees that from that point on, they got into the car and they drove off. They don't stay together much longer after that. Kelly meets up with her friends, relays the story to them. They half believe it, half don't believe it, start taking her back down this road. They knock on this modern house and explained to them what had happened. He turned around and said that it's not the first time he's heard something like this about that road, but he can assure her she has never been in that house before. Now, I've looked on Google Earth and looking around on here. There's plenty of houses you can pick from as it goes down into the end of Debden, and they say they've been on Pudding Lane for a few minutes, so they're probably coming up towards the end of it, and it's a road that they actually know quite well. So they knew these houses along there, but in that sort of weather condition, they just couldn't remember it. It was just, they can't see anything. And that's what Kelly kept repeating, that when this weather come in, it was so bad, they couldn't see past their hands. This is another thing, because all their friends turned around and said that night there was no thunderstorm. There was no storm at all. Was this some sort of time slip that they drove into? An alternate reality? This house, I've gone back, I've tried to go over some old maps, and yeah, there are old houses back there. So now on Google Earth, I think it goes up to about 1985 or maybe 1945, and you can see that the expansion of the area has taken place, but that road has mainly stayed untouched. But some of the houses around there have changed. Could this be an old house that was there, that did suffer a fire and was rebuilt, and that is why it's now a modern house instead of this old-fashioned house? Stuart has kept quiet over this. He relayed his story. It's a very basic version of that story. It still had this unexplained thing about the house being modern, and it was a modern driveway he woke up on, when last he knew he was asleep on the settee. So again, it is a bit strange, but people could probably put that down to him passing out, sleepwalking, going outside. So he left it that he would not be ridiculed. He brushed off the fact that nobody noticed the storm where he was, and it was just a freak of nature that he got caught in this little isolated storm. And he was very dismissive of what had happened, and I believe that is what caused them not to stay together, and they couldn't agree on it. He sort of drew into himself, didn't want to talk to anyone, and that is just how that situation ended. That was in 1990. We're now moving on to 2000. So in 2000, we have two 35-year-olds, husband and wife, have been out visiting friends in Loughton. They've driven through Debden, and they're coming up, and they cut through onto Pudding Lane. Again, this is late August, and it's been a baking hot day, and the sun has been beating down, and everybody's been hot, suntan, absolutely lovely weather. As the night's drawn on, they've been sitting in the garden with their friends, and it's been totally clear sky. No forecast of thunderstorms, so you know what's coming. Obvious. As they drive down Pudding Lane, it starts raining, and only a few seconds later, the rain is so heavy the wipers are on full speed and are taking no effect, and he's crawling along the road. Again, like in 1990, the road starts to flood. He's now down to a crawl, and they're going along, and then the thunder and lightning starts, and it gets worse and worse and worse. He clips the curb, and he blows a tyre. He pulls the car over to the side of the road, and the headlights shine on these big iron gates, and behind it they reflect onto this old house, very much like what we heard in the first tale. And again, I've got to emphasise that in both these reports, this weather seems to be something supernatural. It's not your normal thunderstorm. This thunder and lightning just goes on and on and on, and doesn't seem to pass. This rain, the intensity of the rain does not stop. It doesn't ease. It just gets worse and worse. He's got his car onto the side of the road. He gets out, and the tyre is completely blown. It's completely destroyed. He goes to the boot to get the spare wheel out, and unfortunately he doesn't have a car jack. So lucky enough for him, back in 2000, mobile phones were, I wouldn't say they were, no, I guess they were more popular back then. In 2000 you started having more regular mobile phones. But lucky enough for him, he was a member of the AA. Now, if you're not in the UK and you think, why is it the AA? It's not Alcoholics Anonymous, it's the Automobile Association. And they used to have shops, didn't they? I remember in Eastgate in Basildon that I joined the AA just after I passed my driving test. As in 89, 90, I passed my driving test. And I thought it was something special being a member of the AA, because back then the AA only had the sign written vans, the yellow vans with AA on it, and they were the ones that always used to come out if you broke down, and they used to wear the shirt and the tie. Nowadays you just get your local mechanic who are signed up to the AA and can come out and just do it, and it's nothing special. Back then it felt a bit like a privilege being a member of the AA, and I can't remember in 2000 I think that's when it started to change a little bit. They didn't always wear the uniform that they had to, and your local mechanic could sign up to do the jobs for them. But yeah, anyway, diverting again. He phones up the AA and he says he's stuck on Pudding Lane with a blown out tyre and no jack. They say, okay, someone will be out to you within the hour. And he's like, fantastic. So they stay sitting in the car. And the weather is getting worse and worse, and the thunderstorms coming down. They're sitting there for over an hour now. The AA have not turned up. He phones them back up, and they say that their driver has actually driven down Pudding Lane 3 times to try and find them. And he's going, well, it's pretty clear where the massive puzzle is, I am there. The AA's response shocks them. They turn around and say the driver has been up and down that road, and he assures them that there's no storm and there's no floods and there's no puddles. Is there a different Pudding Lane that they could have gone to? That's one explanation. He's getting a little bit narky with them on the phone. He walks up the street and he's walking and walking and walking, and he comes out into the far end. Now this is where you've got Chigwell Row, I think it is. He turned around and said that as he steps into Chigwell Row, there's no storm. Now I've got to say that doesn't make it paranormal, okay? He said it was completely dry. He turned around and walked back up Pudding Lane, and again the rain was torrential and there was thunder and lightning. Again, he's on the phone to the AA saying, I'm here, I'm stuck here. They're just saying, well, we can't find you. They're now probably thinking it's a crank call. And it ends up, the AA never come out and save them. They stay in that car till it gets daylight. When it gets daylight, they look around, and like before, the roads are completely dry. There's no sign of all this rain. The house that they looked at before, again, is just quite a modern house with a modern fence. No old building now. Eventually, he calls a friend. They come out, jack the car up, change the tyre, and they drive off. I've got to admit that I'm quite confused by both of these stories, and I don't know what to make of them. Some Timeslip stories you can go, oh yeah, I can understand that. These are very, very strange events that happen. They go on to the extreme version of time slips. And I do understand why people doubted Kelly's story, because it does sound... One bit I should add is that Stuart and Kelly, when I was back in the car driving home, they both agreed that they stunk of smoke, thick smoke. So that leans a little bit onto Kelly's side of the story. With the other one, I will say that I remember as a kid being at my back garageway here. We were playing cricket in the back garages, and the rain come halfway up the garageway, and it was absolute trench rain halfway up, and it just stopped almost like a dead line, and we could stand on one side of that rain and keep dry. And you get a little bit of spray coming off from where it was literally bouncing off the path next to it. And then it just moved away. It didn't come up that far. and we were left with this half dry carriageway, and the other half was completely flooded. So I understand these localised showers. What I don't get on that second story is that if he turned round, it's night time, surely where he would still be able to see the light from the thunder and lightning. Going back onto light, in the first story, there's no lights. Now, you could put down a power cut, but was this house so old that she didn't have electricity and the whole house was always lit by candles? There seemed to be a lot of candles in that house. So, you've got to pick your bones out of it and see what you think. These time slip stories are fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. And I like the ones like Kelly reported her one and it appeared in the local paper. And that is where a lot of these documents come from. And that is what inspired the other couple to put their report in. When they see that, they put their report in as well. But these are 10 years apart. Is this something that only happens every 10 years? Have we got another one in 2010 and in 2020? Probably not in 2020. We're in lockdown in that part. Late August. Now I think we could drive out for our little breaks, couldn't we, that time? And you could go out for your voucher meals and get discounts and all that in August. But yeah, it really does fascinate me. These time slips and the alternate universes, parallel timelines, they are really interesting. I say, if you've got more, send them in to me. I've loved reading your comments and the ones that you've emailed to me. So my email is worldofview@msn.com, and that's what I'm using for now because I've still been too lazy to set up, so they say, email address. I will get round to it. And do you know what? I'm going to try and do that tonight, okay? So when I edit this, it may be a so they say email address that comes up. But I edit my videos really late at night, okay? I get tired. It's just 3 o'clock in the morning I was editing that Canterbury one. It's not even got 1,000 views. So I get so picky on the little graphics and images I put in my videos. I get really picky over. And do you know what? I've got to have a little bit of a rant, okay? One of my comments has triggered me. And someone turned around and said about my Tilbury Riverside video that why, and in big capitals, why am I putting photos of children in my video? Are you actually in these photos? Why haven't you blurred their faces out? I took that photo back in 1978, might have been 77, when I was an infant and we got taken on a school trip to Gravesend. Now, Lisa Rolls is in that thing and Elizabeth Fathers is in that photo. And I think the other one is Paul White, Cole Manninger. And Cole Manninger now runs the local tattoo parlour in Corringham. So if you want to moan at me for putting photos in there, go and have a word with Cole. We'll do you a good discount on a tattoo. But I mean, I do get the point. If they were modern photos, and perhaps I should have blurred the photo of faces in there, I don't know. But basically, they're historic photos now. You know, they're so old. But it's like, do you blur kids' faces out from photos from World War II? You don't, do you? And it's like 40 years ago. I'm so old. But yeah, anyway, let me know your time slip stories. This isn't probably the longest video I've ever done, but I do like the time slip ones, and they're more like the old campfire tales and sitting around. And I was actually going to put my chimney on, and I was going to go and sit outside with my chimney on recording this one, but I didn't think the sound quality was going to come out. But I thought it was going to be quite funny actually, but I didn't get around to do it. And but yeah, again, if you had already sent me your address for the monks, send the address to me again, because I'm trying to get them back out now. Don't know what Royal Mail is playing at. I've got the receipts. They never received them. No. But again, I can't hand deliver to the one in Northern Ireland. I do apologise. But yes, please contact me if you've not got your monk and I reply to your message saying that you're going to get one. So again, thank you for your support. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Make sure you turn all your notifications on YouTube. I think only 19% of you have turned on all your YouTube notifications to let them know when I upload a video. Maybe why Canterbury didn't get sent out there as much as it could have done. But thank you for your support. And it's hot. It's going to be really hot again. And I'll see you in another video on Tuesday. Bye.